doing a little research before we hopped on here, you do a really cool study.
Yeah.
I believe it's called the Well-Being Study.
Yes.
And it's really a survey for advisors in our space of like, hey, dude, how are you doing? So I would love for you to dive into your findings there, maybe some surprising data and what that looks like. And maybe we can help a few advisors that are hitting that red line burnout that often, many advisors, especially top performing advisors, face in our industry.
Yeah, I appreciate the discussion around it. This is something I've long been focused on, just really, I guess, as you said, like from my own perspective, from my own journey of going through the business, and this phenomenon that I found is, as I became more successful in my business, as I worked with other advisors that were more successful, and basically saw this phenomenon that, like, I'm talking to more people who are making more money, but I'm not talking to people who seem any like happier in what they're doing. In fact, in general, I would find that the larger the advisory firm, the more stressed that they tended to be. And it kind of opened this curiosity loop for me around what was going on and why that was. And so what I found in that domain is a couple of things. One, at the most basic level, we find that the happiest advisors are not the ones who earn the most money. They're the ones who earn the most money on their time. They're the ones that have the best dollars to time ratio, which at the most basic level, you could essentially boil down to the happiest advisors we find are the ones who earn the most dollars per hour for the work that they do. And then they work the number of hours they want to work to enjoy their life. So the advisor who can make 300 grand working 30 hours a week is way happier than the advisor who's making 400 grand working 50 hours a week, because the second one is making 25% more, but they're working a lot more.
Yep.
And so they're not happier. And it's kind of, if you do the math, income divided into hours worked, like, it's not better. When you boil that down more directly, what we really find in practice is that the happiest advisors are the ones who tend to have the smallest number of clients who write the biggest checks, because that's what maximizes that dollars per hour happiness. And there's a part of it that's like, well, I wish that wasn't entirely the case, because you can sort of take this to the logical extreme of like, the happiest advisors have like 2 billionaire clients and then don't do anything else but get paid a ton of money by their bajillionaire clients. And to be fair, I don't know if it quite goes to that extreme, because we can only find so many advisors who work with billionaires. But that phenomenon, that when we look at the advisors who have the highest well-being, consistently what we find is they end out with being advisors who have fewer than 50 clients, who pay a really nice fee, might be 5 grand, 10 grand, 20 grand plus, and they're making really good dollars working relatively few hours. And what they get from that is control over their time, right? At that point, you're not answering your schedule to an unmanageable number of clients, and you're always trying to keep up with everything. You've got a comfortable client base who pays you well for the work that you do. You're making more than enough money to achieve your goals, and you got a good amount of time, because the reality is, if you can get a solid base of clients that pay you well for your time, once you're kind of established with them in an ongoing client relationship, it's just not that time intensive on an ongoing basis.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, that not rocket science there. I'll tell you one of our findings on our side, to your point that you kind of kicked this off with, we've often seen in our world, when I really define triad partners, as you know, in our space, Michael, we've got a lot of what I would call heavy direct response. Our industry grew up, a lot of public events, live events, TV, radio, manufacturing appointments. And oftentimes they're a victim of their own success, where they were so good at that. Now they're drowning in appointments and service. And we call it the advisor in charge model. because it's actually counterintuitive, because, you know, the young go-getter financial advisor that has a lot of success and does really well, actually it's all on them in most firms where they grew up, because they didn't have a support team.
Right.
And now as they transition and try to become a business owner, which might mean training other advisors to do what they do, like 20 or 30 years of knowledge transfer out of their brain, it's counterintuitive. It's actually the opposite skill of what got them to where they're at today. And it's really hard to deconstruct those habits of, if you want something done, you got to do it yourself. And so that's oftentimes what we see as that gap too, is you can't be the financial advisor, you now have to be the CEO.